gonna have a discussion, okay, about this movie. But welcome to the Book Club for Movies. It is Tuesday, March 23rd. Amy Lajoie and Samir Roy here. Sorry we're getting started a little bit late today. Oh well.
It happens. It happens.
Yeah, but we are happy to be here. We will be discussing director Josef von Sternberg today. But before that, we're going to talk about yesterday's movie. Yesterday we talked about Danny Glover. Hello, Luke. And we chose Beloved to talk about Danny Glover. Now, I
did not realize that he had a nude scene and that he looked that good at his age.
Yeah.
I was really impressed.
Okay, yeah. So I realized that I actually hadn't seen this movie. I think this was a case of one of those things where there was probably some VHS I had that had the trailer for this that I used to watch all the time, and I would see the trailer for it all the time, and then just thought that I had seen this movie. I have never seen this movie because I would have remembered this movie, this crazy movie that is Beloved.
That is pretty accurate. I think from what I remember, it's really faithful to the book, and the book is considered it's consistently judged like one of the great works of literature, possibly the best book written since the mid-'80s for a lot of people.
And Crystal, one of our usual viewers, she said that she actually was just teaching this book in one of her classes, or they were just discussing it. Yeah, so I am curious to read the book because the film went places and they didn't hold anything back.
No, I remember over the weekend, one of the movies that I've been telling Amy to watch recently is a movie called The Devils by Ken Russell. And what I said about the style of that movie is that people were often shocked by the movie because they are going in to see a drama about a horrifying subject, but they know they're going to see a drama, and there's a certain expectation of like decorum that you're going to get. Like, that they're not going to try to push you over the edge in any way. They're going to soften the edges of things because they know you're sitting here watching a movie. Ken Russell, his filmmaking output is very much at least in the case of The Devils was, as I described it, as another critic had written about it, the cinematic equivalent of calling a spade a spade. So the things they're talking about in that movie are like, we're talking about the torture of human beings, the political machinations that destroy people's lives using religion, the torture of human beings because they're not the right religion, the horrible things that were done to people as part of witch trials, So these are all disgusting, horrifying things that had disgusting, horrifying images and results. And so that movie was not interested in pretending that any of those things weren't disgusting and weird and twisted. And so I felt like this movie was kind of the same thing for this generation, where you think you're going in to see a drama. You don't think that you're going to be confronted with the actual violence, the actual gore, the actual twisted nature of the system that really oppressed and abused people for centuries. And so this movie really grabs you by the jugular right away, but it also combines it with horror movie ghost story aesthetics. I just think it's a brilliant freaking movie. I love it.
Legitimately thought this was going to be a romance.
Oh dear.
So imagine my surprise watching this. And pretty much, okay, if you can't handle the first 5 minutes of this movie, it's not going to work for you. Within the first not even 5 minutes, first minute of this movie, there's this horrible thing that happens to a dog. The dog lives, but it's pretty graphic. And it was like, oh, okay. I was texting Samir. I was like, because we were talking about how this movie really did not do well at the box office. We're like, I wonder why. Starting right off, here's a dog with its eyeball hanging out. Ugh.
But I think it had more to do with people just not wanting to be confronted with a story that doesn't make them feel like that we've learned something, we've grown, we're better. They want that kind of reassurance. This movie has no interest in reassuring you whatsoever. I'm sorry, I'm not here to cater to your delicate white feelings about slavery now. The people who made the movie, the people who wrote the book, people who acted in it, all these people are I think I got the sense that No, that is not the point of this film or this story.
No.
I am not going to cater to your weaknesses as a person, because you can't handle that this is part of your history. But at the same time, they've also combined it with a supernatural element and the idea that the spilled blood can come back to haunt people.
Mm-hmm.
I just loved the concept. I loved the story. I loved how they made this movie. It's always surprising you. Also Tandy Newton, I'm like, the death rattle breathing was like, is she like, I thought the actress was going to be hurt physically because she had to keep breathing like that. I was like, is Tandy Newton okay? Because she's had to do this ragged breathing for a long time.
Oh my God. And then like her jaw the whole time, she had this like,
and the movement that she's doing throughout the movie, where she doesn't really, because she's supposed to be like the baby, basically.
Yeah,
somehow it's like a human avatar that had never had any life experience, never learned to walk, never learned to really speak.
Character brought up like so much like mental conflict with myself of watching this and like both feeling sorry for her and then also being like, but she's just like awful.
Well, I would say it's not really our place to necessarily totally judge a human being in that situation, because we don't know what it's like to see the future of your children as slaves.
Yeah.
Or, but like, obviously we know that the community did not appreciate what she did, but it's a morally complicated story that doesn't give you an easy answer.
Oh, wait. I'm not talking about Oprah. I'm talking about Tandy Newton's character.
Oh yeah, no, but I don't know. Again,
it was like character, and there's a lot of spoilers, so I don't want to necessarily go into it. You could kind of understand stuff that Oprah did as far as her character went, as horrible as it was.
But that's a story that, like, you don't hear that very often.
Yeah.
Toni Morrison, I think, really wanted people to know, like, there are other consequences than just people being tortured. When you torture people, you create other problems for those people later as well. There's more than just this one part of the story. But the whole of the time, because Tandy Newton is like, Tandy Newton is basically the avatar of the victim of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you're not prepared for some of the things that happen. Like, some of the things I feel like maybe when we read the book, maybe it'll be clarified. I don't know how much Toni Morrison is interested in perfectly spelling out everything so every person can understand it perfectly. I don't think it's something you understand perfectly. But when Tandy Newton starts trying to make Danny Glover have sex with her, I was just like, I don't know where you're going with that. What is the end game of that? Like, I couldn't picture that, and I can't remember. I thought I'd come to some sort of conclusion by the end of the movie, but I don't remember what it was now. But I was taken on a real ride with this film.
Yeah, it was a 3-hour roller coaster of everything.
And surprisingly didn't move. Usually you hear 3 hours, you're like, oh. But like, I was pretty riveted for like a large portion of this movie, because I'd forgotten a lot of the details of it, because I had seen this, but again, I saw it on video. You don't really get to see the best of a movie on video that's pan and scan and not widescreen.
Yeah.
But like, the first time Danny Glover enters the house in this movie, like the crazy, like the lighting and everything, and just like, oh my gosh, like, this movie is going to a place that almost no movies like that are about these times in the nation's history. I don't see a lot of movies going there stylistically or even in terms of story. I feel like this is such a revolutionary, like, really groundbreaking piece of work in literature. And I thought they really did a great job with it on screen. But you can understand why audiences don't want complexity.
Tough movie.
Audiences don't want complexity with these stories. Like, I'm not saying 12 Years a Slave is not a great film, but there's not a whole lot of complexity in how you interpret that film. It doesn't question you so much. It doesn't really push you to...
It's pretty, well, black and white, for lack of a better term, as far as like, these people are good, these people are bad, and then
there's not a lot of gray area there.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot more in this movie that makes, even though it has all these supernatural elements, it felt emotionally more realistic in a lot of ways than other films that are just trying to be like, oh, I want to tell you how bad racism is, and so this is my Oscar entry, kind of movie. Now, 12 Years a Slave is not that movie, I will say. Steve McQueen is a genuine artist,
and we did
and
choose
that movie is a work of art. So I'm not saying that movie is like that. But there's a lot of movies that don't want to make you work a little harder to digest and contextualize what you've seen. And I feel like this movie asks tough questions of its audience and doesn't let you slink out without having to contend with trying to answer them for yourself. Mm-hmm. So I'd say, it makes sense why it wasn't a hit, why the Academy voters didn't want to really embrace it. I thought Oprah was incredible in this movie as well.
Across the board was amazing. Especially, I really loved the actress who played the grandmother. Like all the scenes with her.
Irma P. Hall, I think. Walter, is that who that was? Walter, you said you worked with her, and she is also a legendary actress.
Yeah, she was great. I especially loved all the scenes where she's out in the woods and she's preaching to everyone. Yeah, she was great. Everyone,
like, genuinely, I'm so glad we chose this movie, though.
She was in it. That's not her.
It's not her, though. Okay.
No, she just because Samir and I were talking about this movie yesterday privately, is in The Lady Killers, the Coen Brothers version.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I did recognize her. I was like, she's in The Lady Killers, among other things. Yeah, but if you didn't see this movie, it is a trip. Lots of trigger warnings in it that had been more recent. Well, as it turns out, I hadn't seen this movie. Here I was thinking, it's a romance.
I'm still I guess I could see why this image of the two of them would make me
think that. And then I kept thinking it was them like, how long has it been? It's been 18 years. And I remember in the trailer, like, there's a shot of Oprah saying something like, you came back to me, which in the trailer, I'm thinking she's talking about Danny Glover. You watch the movie, like, she's not even talking. Danny Glover's not even in the room when that line is
She's
said.
Talking to Beloved.
Yeah, I really thought, yeah, it's not a romance. It's quite intense. But if you didn't see it, it's on Prime right now. Please check it out. Again, it's not an easy watch, but it's definitely worth watching for the experience and the acting and the story. And there's not a lot of other things like this. Yeah.
No, there really isn't. And I want to say hello to Greta. I just saw there's another name that I don't see in the comments regularly. So hello to Greta, and nice to see you again, Andres.
Yes, if you're watching, if you haven't watched this before, or if you have watched this but haven't said hi yet, just say hi. We're friendly.
Right. But, moving on to our Director Tuesday is another nutty choice from the glory days of Hollywood. It's not as handsome as he always looks, but
there were some other pictures of him that I liked better, but they had either like a thumbnail all over it, or it was like the tiniest little, I don't know.
Oh,
I had to go with this one.
A bummer.
Yeah, but he was quite the dashing young man. But Mr. Josef von Sternberg, born May 29th, 1894 in Austria, to an Orthodox Jewish family. When he was little, his family went to the U.S., and then he kind of went back and forth a little bit from the U.S. And Austria. But then eventually, as a young teen, was back in the U.S., kind of worked some odd jobs. Like he worked in a textile factory, among other things. Eventually, he got a job working at the World Film Company in New Jersey when he was 17. And there he cleaned, patched, and coated motion picture stock. In the evenings, he worked as a movie theater projectionist. Eventually, he became like an assistant, did a little bit of editing. He was in World War I. He was in the army. And he made a lot of training films for recruits. So already making his own films. Eventually, he became a assistant director and did that for quite a while. He helped on films in the U.S. and in Europe. He didn't make his first, or really his debut film as a director until he was 30 years old. And from there, he was with the United Artists. He was had a contract with them, and then for the next, like, throughout his career, he kind of went back and forth between he was with the United Artists, and he after that contract was up, he was with MGM for a while. I think he was with Paramount, Columbia, went back to MGM, went back to United Artists. He was kind of all over the place, and I think he went where he thought that he could have some creative control, which is something from my brief readings of him is something that he really struggled with, trying to fight the studio system as far as him knowing what he wants to do. Famous for working with Marlene Dietrich on numerous films. If you Google his name, her name pops up right next to him, and today's film is no exception. But what can you tell us, Samir? You've watched more of his films than I have. What are some things you could say that he's like known for artistically? Some of his standout films and things like that.
Well, he's sort of one of those like any director that has a Vaughn in the middle of their name, like Erich von Stroheim.
Mm-hmm.
They're known for being very controlling directors. They're very committed to their vision. They're also very extravagant stylists who will basically do whatever they have to do to make their vision come to life on screen or on film. So when you watch his movies, there's a really heightened visual sense in terms of the art direction and the cinematography, and especially the lighting. The lighting in his films is like almost unsurpassed.
Yeah.
I believe I remember reading somewhere that he once used over 100 different sources of light for a single close-up of Marlene Dietrich's face in one of these films, because that he knew exactly what he needed to do to create. So he was genuinely a master with lighting. He knew, and it's stunning when you watch the movies. You can see why, these movies. He's known for a very overstuffed sense of art direction. There's like lots of visual clutter in the frame, but it's like lots and lots of things. So there's a sort of excess. There's like a sort of like a visual intoxication that comes with this level of excess. And like, it's not just, we want a room full of candles. Well, you're going to get a room filled with thousands of candles and not just like one big candle. It's like he's going to go all out for that image. Also, the movie we've chosen today is like a particularly strange, I think I said movie, because I think I said on Instagram when I reposted our thing for today's show, it said like, come for the insane art direction, stay for the sexual political chicanery of the plot. But he is one of those, like the classic stereotype of the domineering, super controlling, everything has to be perfect director. Like, he wore jodhpurs and carried a riding crop on the set kind of director. Apparently, the previous time when we talked to Marlene Dietrich, we watched Morocco, which is another von Sternberg movie. And you get a sense of all these things sort of diffusing images in the frame, like the nets, the smoke, the lights, all these things that make this like sort of rich, sensual atmosphere that you're sort of enveloped by when you watch the movie. But also this insane star persona that was created with Marlene Dietrich. And I talked about how then the way that von Sternberg filmed her, he really created her on screen. As much as she created herself and brought herself to the screen, he really is equally important in the creation of the Marlene Dietrich screen persona. And I believe at one point, Martin Scorsese found a quote of him, I think it was in one of the autobiographies that this director wrote, and he said, when you watch these movies, Marlene is not Marlene. I am Marlene. And nobody knows this better than she does. Which is like, so it's a weird symbiotic creative relationship that they had with these movies. They made 7 films together, and really nobody, you cannot replace him to make any of those movies. You cannot replace her to make any of those movies. Those movies came out of that creative relationship between them. I don't know if it was a sexual relationship. I don't remember how much was going on there. I don't think it was at all. I think it was just that he knew how to get the best out of her, and she trusted him, that he wouldn't ask her to do something that wasn't for the betterment of the film or the character. And it was so successful that, as I said when we talked about Marlene Dietrich before, you cannot film after she made these movies with him, starting with The Blue Angel, where she plays, a seductress. She's a cabaret performer that a teacher becomes a super strict, disciplinarian type teacher who all his students hate. He sees her performing and is so enamored that he is devoting his entire life to having her in it. Whatever she wants, he's going to do whatever she wants, whatever she asks, just so he can be with her. And she has no emotional connection to him, so she has no problem sort of, with the moral ruination of his character or ditching him when she's done playing around with, just asking for things until he's, she just used him until she was done with him. And she had no emotional connection. But it was such an entrancing movie that like everybody instantly fell in love with her. So when she sings Falling in Love Again, everybody fell in love with her. But you can't look at Marlene Dietrich without, or a director cannot make a movie with her after these 7 films without seeing her the same way he did. It's almost like her screen, she doesn't make sense on screen without these multiple sources of light and the heavy sort of high key, low key lighting differentiation. Like she almost doesn't make sense in movies without that. So when you see her, if you watch the movie, I think it's called Stage Fright with Alfred Hitchcock, Marlene Dietrich actually was in a Hitchcock movie at one point. And, Hitchcock has his own style of filmmaking, but every time, at first, like the first time you start seeing Marlene Dietrich, it's got this von Sternberg glow about it. Like everybody had to try to recreate that von Sternberg look with Marlene for people to understand, oh, it's Marlene. It's almost like if you don't get that, there's something that like your brain has to adjust. And you'll get there, but your brain doesn't automatically understand, oh, I'm watching Marlene Dietrich. And it's really interesting when you watch. You'll see how it works.
There's this, on that note, there's this quote from Louise Brooks, who worked with him before, and she says, Sternberg, with his detachment, could look at a woman and say, this is beautiful about her, and I'll leave it. And this is ugly about her, and I'll eliminate it. Take away the bad and leave what is beautiful so she's complete. He was the greatest director of women that ever was.
Wow, Louise.
Yeah,
that's
so
quite a
he
statement.
just knew how to, make that, that glow with all these actors. This was something else. Right. This was from a screenwriter. It said this. To understand what Sternberg is attempting to do, one must first appreciate that he imposes the limitations of the visual upon himself. He refuses to obtain any effect whatsoever, save by means of pictorial composition. This is the fundamental distinction between von Sternberg and all other directors. Stage acting, he declines. Cinema, in its conventional aspect, he despises as mere mechanics. And dialogue, he employs primarily for its value as integrated sound. The screen is his medium, not the camera. His purpose is to the emotional significance of a subject by a series of magnificent canvases. And one final quote from, this is from an American film critic, Sternberg resisted the heresy of acting autonomy to the very end of his career, and that resistance is very likely one of the reasons his career was foreshortened.
Very much so, because when he worked in his first few movies, some of them you can't find, like A Woman of the Sea from 1926. It was also known as A Seagull. Movie's completely lost. Like we don't know where it is. Same with The Exquisite Sinner, made the same year. Don't know where it is. The first movie that was a huge hit, I think, was Underworld. And then Last Command. I believe that these movies actually won Oscars for people in them. I don't think he won an Oscar for them, but they were amazing, successful pictures to a certain degree. The Docks of New York was another silent film that I thought was really beautiful that maybe wasn't as big a hit. Thunderbolt. And then you get to sound film with The Blue Angel. And of course...
Yeah, he was nominated twice for Best Director, for Morocco and for Shanghai Express.
interesting choices, because I do think his best films are actually the Underworld, The Last Command, The Dogs of New York, The Blue Angel. Thunderbolt is his first sound film. It's actually still really good. And then the 7 movies he made with Marlene Dietrich. In between, he did a version of An American Tragedy. But if I was going to nominate him for directing, I would have nominated him for some of the first few silent films, and then for The Blue Angel, and definitely for The Scarlet Empress, which is the movie we're watching today, which I think this is like the crowning achievement of his filming. I still love the movie he made after with Marlena called The Devil is a Woman, which is like almost like a cuckolding drama with Marlena just having fun no matter what the consequences to dudes. She doesn't care if they get violent with her. She doesn't care. She's like, whatever, I'm going to get what I want, and I know I'm going to win in the end. And she lives her life that way. This movie is like a much more well-rounded role, but also visually just one of the most bizarre things that ever came out of Hollywood in this era.
So
you'll see when you watch it.
This came out in 1934. A German noblewoman enters into a loveless marriage with the dim-witted, unstable heir to the Russian throne, then plots to oust him from power. Based on the diary of Catherine the Great.
Yes, so there's many bits of black humor in this movie, including a joke about the famous myths of Catherine the Great. You'll know the shot when you see it. It's just like obviously a visual pun. There's nothing that's like, there's nothing like there's something inappropriate about it or anything anyway, but you get the joke instantly and you're like, oh, Joseph, you dirty bastard.
Oh,
but there's also several really macabre touches in this film that will also be kind of surprising. I believe there's a part where there's a shot of a human being used as the inside of a bell as part of a torture scene.
Creative.
So they're ringing a bell by swinging a human being around inside it. There's like things like that just thrown in, and you're just like, oh. But also, it's really about using sex as power and how Catherine the Great learns this lesson the hard way when she becomes the bride of Peter. I forget his full name, but if you saw the show The Great, let me just say The Great does not prepare you for just how grotesque Peter is in this movie. He's played by Sam Jaffe, and when I show this movie to other people, first of all, there's no Russian accents in this movie. There's almost none. You're not going to get a Russian accent or really a German accent of any kind, except from Marlena, because that's where she's from. Yes. But like, you will be shocked when you see Sam Jaffe for the first time in this movie, and he never looks any better than he does in that horrible first shot of him. You'll just be constantly surprised by like the excessiveness of some of these choices in the stylization of the costumes or the makeup or the architecture of this castle that she goes to, which has all these insane, twisted, writhing, tormented figures in like cast in plaster holding candles, and it is nuts. And I fucking love this movie. It is visually, it's one of the most stunning things you could ever look at in black and white. It is always surprising, always delightful, and then you just come to love Marlene Dietrich knows how to play this character. She plays her from like the innocent girl who has dreams that are dashed when in the reality of becoming Tsarina present themselves after she gets there. So I am excited for you to watch this. I'm very excited because it's going to be fun. And so happy that the Criterion Channel brought it back onto their streaming platform so that it could be watched again. I mean, I already own this on DVD. I've been waiting for a really nice special edition of it, which I don't think they still haven't done. But actually, I think they did fix it because I have the box set now, the von Sternberg Dietrich Criterion box set that has all of their films.
And actually, all of their films are on Criterion right now. And as far as I know, this is the only place where you could watch this movie without paying to rent it. But if you still don't have the Criterion app, please get it. I think there was a 2-week free trial, but we pick movies
It's worth
a
it.
lot, and I know at least one more of our films this month is going to be on there, and then there's definitely a lot that we have planned in April that are going to be on that app. So please check it out. Yeah, I'm really excited.
Please do, and yes, Crystal, I'm glad you watched The Great. This will not be quite as charming an experience as that show was, which I enjoyed. I enjoyed the show. I'm not knocking the show at all. Definitely, you're in for a surprise with this movie if that's the only really media you've seen about Catherine the Great. Good stuff you're in for.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh yes. Well, if anyone wants to support us on Patreon, I put the link over in the comments. I'm also putting a link for our Redbubble page. You can get a t-shirt like I have. They have us on. You can get this on like pretty much anything. Crystal, one of our Patreons, hello, she got it on a sweatshirt. Yeah, but check that out. Again, Scarlet Empress is on Criterion, so get Criterion. Try Criterion. Do like a month to month. You could always cancel it. It is cheaper if you go ahead and pay for it for a year. But try it out. If you're still not sure, maybe try it for a month or two and then decide, it's time. I'm just going to commit and get it for a year. Tomorrow, we are going to be talking about actress Eva Green. It is Eva, which I learned from her doing her sleep story on the Calm app. And she's, hello, it's Eva Green. It's like, oh, it's Eva, it's not Eva. I've been saying it wrong this whole time. Tomorrow's movie is only on Showtime. So that's something else. I know there is a free trial for Showtime. That's something Samir and I are both going to be getting Showtime, at least for, this free trial month period, just so we can watch the movie. But tomorrow's movie is really, really good. So that's something else to think about. And unfortunately, that's the only place where it's streaming, but we're gonna have to get it too.
Yes,
that's something I'll probably do a free trial for the month, maybe pay for it for one more month, see how it goes. If not, cancel it, because we have so many other streaming services. Hope everyone enjoys the Scarlet Empress. Again, all of the other see, look, here is a glowing recommendation for the Criterion app right now.
Oh yes, they put all of the Preston Sturges comedies in there this last month, which are great. We can't speak highly enough about the Criterion channel. I've been, if you're a film enthusiast, like we have, like that, they've been I've been buying DVDs from them since I first fell in love with movies. They've always been a great champion of a lot of these amazing works of art that are hard to come by otherwise without the work that they're doing to bring them into homes everywhere through the DVD and home video market. They've been doing it since the Laserdisc days, since Laserdisc first started. A lot of my film education came from buying these DVDs and the commentary tracks and the supplemental features on them. They teach you so much about filmmaking, and they really just, it's a part of my life that I cannot do without at this point. So it will never be gone from whatever TV I have will always have a subscription to Criterion Channel on it. And I'm now starting to actually go back and buying the physical DVDs and Blu-rays of a lot of these films again that I sold during college so I could feed myself when I didn't have a real income and I was too sick to hold down a regular job and go to school. Yeah, they're very worthwhile things. Sometimes these movies also just are never released by Criterion again, and there's no other DVD of them to have for years. So sometimes when you buy these movies, like, you're buying something that actually will be the only way you can watch it 10 years from now. And so there's a lot of films that were like that for me. So everybody, please to enjoy the Criterion Collection streaming channel and watch this amazing movie that I think you will really get a kick out of. And never fails to get a rise out of somebody. Somebody always responds to this movie. And Please, Amy, text me as you start watching it.
Yeah.
I want to hear, because it's I'm telling you, stylistically, it's nuts.
Oh, well, I can't wait. Please watch this movie. Join us tomorrow as we discuss it. After watching it, moving on to our discussion of the lovely Eva Green, one of my favorites as an actress. I think she's awesome.
I love her too. The movie we were going to choose just could not be found anywhere except my DVD collection, of course.
Of course. But look into the Criterion app, as well as Showtime, which will be more for tomorrow's film. But everyone have